Today, Amanda and I are going to talk about getting started with Power BI Desktop. And not only getting started, but getting your team started. So just a show of hands, who would consider themselves new to Power BI Desktop? Okay, most of you. Who is trying to get their organization started with Power BI Desktop? Okay, same hands. Great. So we're going to cover a couple things here. We're going to kind of cover an intro to Power BI Desktop, the overview, why to use it, how to use it. We're going to do an intro demo there. And then we're just going to kind of talk about best practices of where to even start, what resources you have available to you, and we'll go from there. So expect kind of the first half to just be the intro, and then to talk about just best practices and where to go next. This deck will all be online. There's a lot of links in the deck. And that's on purpose. So you guys can go download this. You can watch the session later and really just dig into the links. So we won't spend a ton of time on the resources themselves, but really just cover all the things you can get to. So Power BI Desktop. So there's a whole ecosystem around Power BI, right? But we really consider Power BI Desktop that starting place, that end-to-end place for analysts. So this is where you're going to go to connect to data, you're going to do your data prep, you're going to create interactive reports, and you're going to publish them to the Power BI service. Once you publish, there's a whole bunch of capabilities there. You can set up automatic data refresh, you can subscribe to them via email, you can share them, you can view them on any device on all of our mobile apps. So really think of Power BI Desktop as that authoring tool, that first place. So Power BI Desktop, totally free. You can download it at powerbi.com and just get started. And from there, you really just connect to data, start dragging and dropping visualizations, and go. So we update monthly. Every month we ship a lot of features. So this is just an example of the last couple months. You can see it's a lot. And one of the things we'll talk about is kind of how to keep up to date with that and how to make sure that you're keeping up with all the changes that are coming into the product month over month. So there's over 70 data sources and growing. At Build, we announced the ability to build your own custom connectors. So you can build whatever you want. You can connect to anything. And every month we're shipping new data sources. So if there's something you haven't seen yet, it's probably in the works. And we'll talk about this a bunch, but there's a forum called ideas.powerbi.com. The product team watches that really closely, and users can go and vote for things they want. They can request new features, and we keep track of that, and we will respond to requests. And as we make those updates, we'll actually send out a notification to the folks that have voted for it and give them an update. So that's one really good resource that we'll talk more about. So once you have your data connected to Power BI Desktop, then it's all about interactive reports. So you can come in, you can start discovering data, exploring, creating different visuals. But really that output is interactive reports. And you'll see what we mean in the demo. But everything's cross-highlightable, filterable, drill, and not only for the report author, but for the end users that you publish this report to. Finally, we have a custom visuals framework. So custom visuals are built using HTML, CSS, D3, all these really common technologies. And it allows you to make any visual you want. So if we don't have it in the product, there's a custom visuals gallery online. If you saw in the keynote, very soon it'll be in Power BI Desktop. So you can go and launch that visuals gallery. There's, I think, 80 more visuals there. And if it's not there, you can build it yourself. So don't feel limited by anything you see in the product, because really it's up to you. You can build whatever you want. So once you have an interactive report, you're going to take that report and publish it to the Power BI service. There's a one-click button in the desktop, and it's up to the service. From there, like I said, there's a bunch of features that you can use with your organization. Automatic refresh, email subscriptions, alerting. There's a bunch of governance features and administrative capabilities that you can use with your team. So really, Power BI Desktop is just the starting place. And then you'll kind of expand into the Power BI service and the mobile apps and all the other features across the Power BI ecosystem. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Amanda, and she's going to do the intro demo to Power BI Desktop.
Hi, I'm Amanda. As the intro slide said, I am a PM on the Power BI Desktop team, and I'm going to walk you through just kind of how to get a basic workflow in Power BI. So once you have the Power BI Desktop open, the first thing you should always do is get data. That's the heart of Power BI. You need some kind of data to start creating visuals. So to do that, you'll go, once I find my mouse, there we go. You go to Get Data, And from here, you will see the list, all those 70 data sources Kim showed. You see the whole list here. You can, so long, we gave you search. But I'm just going to start with Excel. Very simple. Most people have some kind of Excel data. And once you hit connect, you'll be able to pick out what Excel file you want to connect to. And then you'll see all of the different tables and sheets within that Excel file, and you can select as many or as few as you want. You can preview them and help you pick out which one's the one you want. I want the sales table, so I'm going to select sales. And then at this point, I have two options. I can either load my data and go directly to creating my own visuals on my reporting canvas, or if my data needs any extra cleansing, I can choose to edit it. And when I click edit, what this will do is it will open the query editor for me on the wrong monitor. It will open the query editor for me, and at this point I can now start adding columns, doing any kind of transformation I want to do, pivoting, unpivoting. There's lots of advanced features here. There's also some pretty simple ones like converting a date to text or vice versa, changing data types. So really anything you want to do in terms of cleaning up your data, you can do here. I'm going to go, and as an example of something you can do, I'm going to create a conditional column. And so what this will do is it opens up a little dialog where I can use some if-else statements to generate a new column. So for example, this is my sales data, and I want to be able to categorize my sales by the size of them. So I have small, medium, and large sales. So I'll go in, and I will just pick sales amount, and say whenever a sales amount is less than $1,000, my sale size is small. I can add as many rows as I want. I'm going to add one more to say sale size less than 5,000 is a medium sale size, and then otherwise they're large. And once I hit OK, it will automatically create a new column for me that generates for each row, if it's a small, medium, or large sale size. I'm going to quickly rename this to sale size. And you can see as I keep doing these different steps, it's actually generating a new step for me in the steps panel here. And I can go back and forth, jump to an old step, see what changed as I did my different modifications, remove them, reorder them, whatever I need to do. And now, once my data is clean, this was a fairly clean Excel file already, so I'm just going to go ahead and close and apply. And what this will do is it will, based off of the steps I gave it, it will pull out all the data from the Excel spreadsheet, apply all those steps, and then push the data into my data model. Once it's there, I'll be able to see all the tables. I just have one, but if I had multiple, I would see them all listed here with all of the columns associated with that table. I can also see, by going over here to the data view, I'll be able to actually see the tables in my data model and look at all the different columns. And this is also a good place if I want to do any more advanced calculations, like creating any kind of measures that are based off of my business logic, like sales to date, or adding new columns. I can do that here as well using a expression language called DAX. We have lots of sessions at this conference around DAX and how to learn it, so I'm not going to go into any details here, but definitely attend some of those sessions if you're interested in that. So I'm just going to go ahead and start creating my visuals. So up here in the visualizations pane, you'll see a bunch of icons. These are all of the visuals we have by default in Power BI. As Kim mentioned, you can pull in custom visuals as well. But I'm just going to start with the most simplistic of charts. I'm going to get a column chart. And the way to start creating visuals here is to just drag and drop into the field well here. There's different buckets for axis, legend, what number I want to show on it. And all I have to do is drag and drop. So I'm going to drag sales amount over to the values column and put my sales size that I created earlier in my axis. And now I automatically can see my sales for the total amount of sales that were in my large, medium, and small buckets. I can also do things like change my aggregation type. So by default, it summed up all of my sales. But if I want to know something like what was the average amount that I sold within each of these buckets. I could change my aggregation type to average as well. I can also continue to add even more fields to this chart. So for example, I'm going to drag class over to legend, and now automatically I added a legend to my chart that I can now use and customize. We have lots of different charts, and each one is used for a different purpose. If you have dates in your data, you likely will want to use a line chart. So we, of course, have that as an option, and I'm going to drag in the dates of all of my orders into the axis. And you can see it automatically created a hierarchy for me. So we were smart enough to know that a date is composed of days, months, quarters, and years. And we automatically generated this hierarchy for you. And once I add units into the line chart, you can see that right now we're just showing you units by years. We're at the top of the hierarchy. But either using the drill button to go into a specific year, or using this expand down option, I can move through my layers of my hierarchy and continue to get more refined in what data I'm looking at. So right now I move one level down, so I'm on quarter. If I click it again, I'm now looking at the month level. Power BI is very interactive. We purposely let you put a bunch of charts on the same page so you can start clicking and playing around to find insights. So for example, I can click this bar and filter down the line chart by medium regular products. And just by being able to click around, I can start finding insights really quickly. Power BI also makes it really easy for you to find some more advanced insights as well. A lot of times when you have sales, a common question is, okay, I see what my sales are so far, but what are my sales going to look like a year from now? What's the prediction? And a lot of times that's really hard. You have to know a lot of times you have to go to R or do some other deep analysis. But we make it really easy to just get started. We have this option called the analytics pane. And from here we have a card called forecast, and just by clicking add, we automatically generate a forecast for you. You didn't have to know anything, you just had to click a few buttons. And of course, if you are a more advanced user, you can go in and customize it. But if you want, you can just take the defaults and you have a nice forecast. And again, still highly interactive. As I look at the different products, my forecast will also update to show for each of those individual products what the outlook of that product is in the future. Going to show a slightly more advanced chart now. We also have, of course, scatter charts. And I'm going to build out a scatter chart that shows for each of my product the cross of the satisfaction of that product and the likelihood for the customer to purchase it again. So again, just dragging and dropping into the field well. I changed the aggregation type to average. And now I'm going to drop my products into the details bucket and automatically created a nice scatter chart so I can see things like, well, it looks like these products here are probably the ones that are doing very badly. They are pretty low on the likelihood to be purchased again, and people are not satisfied with them. But if I want to get a little bit more refined than that, I want to perhaps create a cluster that shows what my bad products are, my products that are doing badly. I can just go into more options and automatically find clusters. This is another example of how we make it really easy with just a few clicks to find deeper analysis in my data. So I can either just hit OK and accept whatever Power BI thinks is the best number of clusters, or I can choose to customize. And so I'm going to say I actually want 5 clusters. And automatically, it will generate a new column for me, grouping my data into what it thinks are the best groupings for it. So I can see it looks like this cluster 5, that category down there, those are my products that I could probably need to look into. All of these charts, these are just how it looks by default, but they're also highly customizable. I can go into the formatting pane, and for example, right now all of the dots are rings, but I think it would look better, especially with the color choices, if they're filled in. So just with a flip of a switch, I can fill in all of my points and change how my chart is formatted. We have so much customization here. You can edit the axes, change the legend, adjust the bubbles, any kind of customization you can imagine we have for all of the different charts. once you kind of build out your analysis, you might start thinking about other people consuming the chart. And imagine them starting to interact with the charts and perhaps even filter down your data as well. We make it really easy for you to allow users to filter the data on the fly to match what they're interested in. We have this visual called a slicer. And what a slicer is it's basically an on-canvas filter. I can drag any field I want users to filter by into the slicer, and it automatically have a nice UI related to it. So for example, I want users to be able to filter by date. So if they want to cut out to like the last year, or be able to, early on our sales are pretty bad, so maybe I don't want to include those. I'm able to, just by dragging on date into the slicer, it creates this nice slider that I can control, just drag and drop and pick the date I want to end on. And automatically all the charts update to show me just that range of dates. You can also, each slicer matches the type of data that is shown in it. So for dates, we by default gave you a nice slider. But if, say, I wanted to filter down by country as well, I could drop in my country category. And by default, since it's string, it gives me a list. But of course, we have customization options for text. I can also pick to have a drop down. And now I have this nice simple drop down for users to be able to quickly slice and dice the data to what they care about most. So now I have this really beautiful report. I want to start sharing it out with others. The best way to do that is to publish it to the Power BI service. And we have a nice publish option here right in the Power BI desktop. When you click it, we of course ask you to save it. And then once you are assuming you are signed into the Power BI service, we show you all the different workspaces that you have. And you can pick to publish it either to your own personal workspace, or if you have a workspace that you're sharing with colleagues, you can publish it to one of those as well. I'm going to publish this one to my workspace for this conference. And once I select it, it will automatically start pushing this whole workbook up into the cloud. And once it's done publishing, I'll be able to reach it. And it gives me a link right there. I can open in the web. And I'll be able to see in the web, it's just as highly interactive as you saw on the desktop. I can still click. I can still change slicers. Anything that you can do in the desktop, in the report, in terms of interactions, you can do here as well. And then I can choose to do something like if it's, I can set up a refresh so the data continues to update. I can choose to subscribe to this report so that I can get emailed to me every day as my data changes, what's the updates, what has changed. And I can also take these charts, put them on a dashboard, and share out with others as well.
Awesome. Thanks. So let's jump back to the slides.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now you got a little overview of how Power BI Desktop works. So whenever we show this demo at big conferences, a bunch of people come up after and they say, okay, that's great, but what do I do? Like, how do I just start? What do I do first? So we're going to kind of start with how to get started. And we'll talk about some tips and tricks on how to ramp up. So there's a bunch of learning options available for you. And they kind of go from most intense to easiest in terms of dashboard in a day. That's a full day session. We actually had one on Sunday during the conference. Maybe some of you went to that. Full day, classroom setting. You're just immersed in everything that is Power BI. And there are local partners in every city giving these. If you are interested, you can talk to your sales rep and they'll know the partners to kind of hook you up with to go join one of those sessions. So that's a really great way. If you're just like, I want to learn everything right now, you can spend a day and really get a lot of info all at once. Guided learning. So guided learning is really, you can go, it's self-paced, but we cover everything Power BI, and it's a mix of, let me just show you what that one looks like actually.
So your browser's already open.
Oh,
you can
perfect.
just click.
I think it's this one.
Nope.
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 Just kidding.
That one.
Previewed all the rest. So guided learning, we have a bunch of videos, but there's also a bunch of tutorials around it. So you really get a mix of ways to consume this content. And as you can see, Everything is about 2 minutes, 5 minutes long, so you can kind of do this at your own pace and decide what you want to learn first and how quickly you want to ramp up on that stuff. Jump back to the slides.
Look at it again.
Thinking about it. There we go. The edX course is another option. It's pretty similar to guided learning, but it also has some quizzes, some kind of gates where you have to confirm what you've learned and make sure you've learned it. I think at the end you get a little certification that you can say, I've actually did this and prove it. So this is a good way if you're trying to get your organization to really learn this thing and you want to make sure they did it, have them go through the edX course because they can show proof that they actually went through the course. And then finally, YouTube. So we post lots of videos on YouTube. Every monthly release, Amanda films a video covering what we just shipped. And we also have videos like how to use maps in Power BI, how to style your line chart, from the simplest thing to the most complex thing. So if you're ever kind of in a bind trying to do something in Power BI and you don't know the answer, chances are if you search on YouTube, you will find a video with one of us explaining it. So definitely check out those resources. Again, the links will be available, and you can just search for all of these right now if you want. But it's really kind of up to you how you want to learn this and at what pace you want to learn, but there are a bunch of options here. So the other thing we get asked a lot is, I just need some place to start. I need some content to start with. Maybe you don't want to start with your own data, or maybe you don't even know how to get started with your own data. So there's a few options here. One, there's a whole bunch of samples on our documentation pages, and there's a link here. We have samples that kind of range in category. So if you're in sales and marketing, there's one for you. There's an HR one. So you can kind of pick one that looks similar to your data if you're not ready to use your own data. And you can even download a PBIX file, a Power BI desktop file, that you can just open and it's already made, and you can just kind of start playing with it. So you don't have to start from scratch. We find that that's kind of a good way to start from editing is really helpful. Content packs in the Power BI service are another great way to get started with your own data. So if you go into the Power BI service and you look at content packs, there are a bunch of options with online services, anything from Dynamics and Salesforce. GitHub is a really popular one, Google Analytics. So you can go in there, put in your credentials, and then you just get a bunch of reports and dashboards pre-made for you. So that's just a great way, like you see your data immediately, you can interact with it, you can play with it. And we'll talk about more about tricks to using content packs when you're getting started, but this is also a really great option, especially if you just want to see the value really quickly. That's a great option. Finally, solution templates. So solution templates, really with a couple clicks, allow you to just trigger this end-to-end solution for a bunch of ready-made scenarios. So Amanda's going to jump over to the solution template page. But there's a bunch of options like, so we have a Twitter campaign management one. There's one for Salesforce, for Dynamics. There's one for Bing search terms. And so you can see, you fill out a couple things and you put in the hashtag you're looking for, and then you have a report and it's done and ready-made. The output of the solution templates are actually a PBIX file that you can take with you, open in desktop, and now start to customize it. Just jump through a couple of these pages here so you can see. But yeah, so this just is pulling data from Twitter immediately. This one's for Power BI. And you can immediately start playing with it. So that's another way that if you just want to see value really quickly with your data, solution templates are a great option. Awesome. Cool. So now Amanda's going to talk about how to drive consumption within your organization, how to make great reports.
Yeah. So now that you've gotten started, you have an idea of what kind of charts you want to build, it's important that you start making your reports more, you could say a little bit more beautiful. You want your reports to tell a story. You want them to match the theme of your corporation. Whatever it is, we have good features to help you do that. So for example, in Power BI, we have this feature called theming. It lets you define what colors you want to be used across your entire report, and you can just import that theme, and it just automatically be used everywhere. And if you don't want to a lot of times this is good if you have a corporate theme. So if like your marketing team says that like this is our company's logo's color, it must be used in all your charts. This is a good way to do that. And it also just helps you try to find a theme that kind of more matches the type of data you're showing. And if you're not so much the creative type, you don't want to build this out yourself. In our community, we have a themes gallery where other people who are very creative have went ahead and created good data visualization themes. And you can just search through all of them. There's multiple pages of them, more are getting added all the time. You can interact with a report that's already using that theme and download it yourself and start using it in your own product. We also have a couple of more PowerPoint-esque features. You know, Amir said this morning, we are very much like PowerPoint for data. And so we have a lot of these features that help you create beautiful reports. We have snap to grid and grid lines that help you easily align all your charts, makes it look really professional when everything aligns nicely. We also have shapes and text boxes and images. So like if you have a company logo, you can add that to the top left corner really easily, just importing the image. You can also use, if you have a data point as part of your story you want to call out, you can use a shape to create a little arrow and point it at that point, and then insert a text box to type in what's interesting about that data point. By using these features, you can really start to tell a story similar to what you do in PowerPoint already within your Power BI reports. And if you want to get inspired and see what other really cool things people are already doing in Power BI, we have a place to do that as well. We have what's called a data stories gallery in our community as well, similar to the themes gallery, but this time it already has a bunch of done reports. These are reports people in the community have done and think are really cool and want to share them out. They a lot of times will show some of the best practices or creative ways to use visuals. For example, this one was from the Data Stories Gallery. This is using US traffic data. And they're just the same as any other report. They're highly interactive, but now you can see like, oh, look, someone made this really cool image using a custom visual of like where, this is kind of sad data, where people where the people are most likely to die in part of their car. But you know, you can kind of get inspired. You can imagine in a happier world this was instead your store layout, and you can see where people are going most in your store. So you can start seeing some cool ways people have used visuals in Power BI and get inspired and try to incorporate that into your workbook as well. Another thing you need to consider when building out your reports is the fact that most people now look at things on their phone. I mean, you all have your phones in your hand right now. You know, we all look at phones. We are on the go all the time, and we want to be able to still continue to look at our dashboards no matter where we are in a nice view that's optimized for your phone. And so we have a feature to help you do this as well. Whenever you're designing your report in the desktop, you know, we have the nice big canvas meant for monitors, but there's also a way you can switch your view and instead have a phone layout and be able to customize your charts layout to match what would be best optimized for your reports. So I'm going to show you that as well. I'm going to open up my desktop file again. This is the file I demoed earlier. If you go over to the View tab up here, you'll see there's a new option, not new, it's been here a while, an option called Phone Layout. And we automatically put away the old canvas and show you a phone to give you kind of perspective of how it's going to look to your users. And you'll see all the charts that you had in your report over here. And you can just start dragging and dropping and snapping to a grid to create what was going to be the view when someone's looking at on their phone in a vertical layout. And you can pick, maybe not all the charts make sense on a phone. Like if you had that fancy car thing, maybe you don't want someone to look at that on the phone. You want something simpler. So you can start picking what makes sense for your data. And so once you do this and you save and publish it, once you share out the report with anyone, they automatically will get this whenever they're looking at their phone vertically, but if they do switch to the horizontal view, they do end up with the whole report. So you're able to customize it depending on the orientation that they're looking at. And so those are just some of the tips that we have in terms of creating good good reports that tell a story. And now Kim's going to talk about collaboration a bit.
Yeah, thanks. So now you've kind of seen how to get started. You've seen how to make a beautiful report, some tools you have to make those even better, to make them really easy to consume. But then your organization starts using Power BI and you find that you're all kind of working off of the same report, or you're all trying to build a bunch of data sets all at once. So we're just going to talk about some tips and tricks to make that process a little bit easier, and some of the things we do internally to make that process easier. So Power BI templates. So this is a relatively advanced feature. Power BI templates have a lot of power in them. What you can do is you can save your Power BI desktop file as a template, and it saves the definition of the report without any of the data. So there's a bunch of power there, right? You could imagine switching out the data sets on the fly, or letting other people kind of pick which parameters they want to use. But there's a really simple use case for it that we like, which is just defining kind of the layout of the report, right? The colors, the theming, all the things Amanda just showed you. Imagine one person in your organization kind of sets that up. Maybe you don't even import data. You just decide, okay, there should be 4 visuals on this page, 5 on this page. You should use this theme, this logo, this font. You can go ahead and do all those things, save it as a template, and then give that out in your organization. And now when anybody starts from that template, they just get those things. So now you don't have to teach your people how to use a theme. You don't have to share JSON files around. You don't have to make sure they have the right on-brand logo. They just start from the template. So that's one really good option for just getting other people started really, really quickly. Just say, open this, go. So that's one option. Another area is around kind of collaboration, right? OneDrive is a really powerful tool for collaboration. It's got things like versioning, it's got things like file locking, permissions, sharing, all of these things. And Power BI service knows about OneDrive, and they work really well together. So if you are working off of a PBIX file in Power BI Desktop, and you share it to OneDrive, you can then go into the Power BI service and link those up. So you can find your file in OneDrive from the service. And now whenever you make a change to that report, those changes are just going to happen in the service. They'll just automatically go. You don't have to worry about publishing. You don't have to worry about who did what last. It just happens. And then if somebody goes and makes a change and breaks your report, you can roll back, right? If you want to make sure some people can view it, but they can't author it, and or they can make a copy of it, you can control all of that in OneDrive. They've got a ton of powerful features there. So really using Desktop, OneDrive, and the Power BI service all together creates this really good collaboration workflow that we use on our team internally. So there's more info on all these links as we go through the slides of how to get that set up. But really consider, if you're working off of the same PBIX file, really leverage OneDrive to make sure that you can control a lot of that collaboration. There's a new feature we introduced a couple months ago. And what it allows you to do is connect to any data model in Power BI Desktop that you've already published to the service. So why is that useful? When you ask people about their authoring process, what's easy, what's hard, what do they like, what do they not like, everyone says the data modeling process is the hardest part. It takes up 70% of your time, 80% of your time. Nobody likes doing it. Everybody likes creating the visuals and making beautiful reports. So with this feature, what you can do is really split up that workflow. So you can have one person or a few people go and do all the data modeling work. They can write all the DAX measures. They can figure out what clusters to use. They can figure out, what do each of these measures mean, and how across the company are we defining profit, or how are we defining revenue. So you can centralize that, and then you publish that up to the Power BI service. And now anybody who has access to that data set can go and create new reports off of it, and they get a read-only view of the data set that you originally published. So that's a really good way to just split up those tasks, right? And you have a couple people concerned with modeling, and then many more people concerned with just creating beautiful reports. It also simplifies the data source and refresh management. That's another area we hear a lot. Oh, the credentials changed, and I need to go update all my data models. So if you do this in one place, that's really centralized. You don't have to educate your users on how to manage that, how to set up a refresh. You just do it for them, and they create reports. So that's another area that you should really take advantage of in Power BI Desktop. Another area, this is a little more advanced, is around deployment. So we get this question a lot. I have a huge organization. How do I get Power BI Desktop to everyone? So there are a couple tips for that. So one thing we really, really recommend is everyone in the organization should be on the same version of Power BI Desktop. So you can either all decide to update monthly. Whenever we release, you click the button and automatically download the update. Or maybe your organization says, okay, we only want to update once every 2 months, every 3 months. Maybe IT wants to test it in advance before they roll it out. So there's this tool called System Center Configuration Manager. And the link there has a whole step-by-step on how to use it. But what that allows IT to do is pick a build and deploy it to all the computers in their organization. So this helps, especially if you have users that aren't admins, or if they don't, if your users aren't downloading the updates or don't want to deal with that, IT can go and deploy that for them. So that blog post really covers kind of how that process works, how to go about doing it. On the roadmap, we're actually looking at putting Power BI Desktop in the Windows Store. So that's going to allow us for really quick installation, but also automatic updates going forward, and all the IT tools that come with that. So expect to see progress here in the next few months. But in the meantime, System Center Configuration Manager is your best bet for really controlling the deployment and making sure everybody has Power BI Desktop. So Amanda's going to talk about staying up to date.
So as Kim mentioned, we deploy a new update to the Power BI Desktop every single month. There's a long list of features. We know that can be very hard to keep up with. And so we have a couple of resources that are good for that. The first is you should just always check our blog. I publish every single month a very long blog that details all the different features. So you can just check that, see the whole list, pick out which features you want to learn more about, and read all the details. And I also, if you're not into reading, I also record a corresponding video that goes along with that. And again, just goes into all the details about all the different features that we release every single month. You can also, if you are maybe a slightly more advanced user, are very curious, you can check. A lot of times before we fully release a feature to everyone, we'll release it in preview. And so what this means is it's not turned on by default, but you can go into your options. There's a little, in the picture, it shows what it looks like. There's a place where you can just check, like, oh yes, I'm interested in the relative date slicer. I want to try it out. And you check the box and hit OK, and we will then enable that feature in your version of the desktop. You can start playing with it, even though we are continuously making that feature better. You can start playing with it, get an idea of how it can be used in your reports, and also give us valuable feedback on how you would want that to change before it actually gets deployed to everyone. The last thing you can do is you can check out, we have a lot of great webinars in the community. These are really good. They're really in-depth sources that cover a wide range of topics. There's some that are just getting started with the product and webinars on that topic. But then there's also some really advanced webinars, like I want to learn how to be amazing at DAX, or I want to become a report guru and be able to create beautiful reports that tell a story. Whatever topic you're interested in learning more about, there is a corresponding webinar that you can watch as well. And obviously, as you start using the product, you're guaranteed to have questions. And we have a lot of good resources for that as well. The first is we have an amazing community. A lot of, you're all here, you're all part of the community, and there's way more as well out in the world. And the community is a good place if you're having any questions and you want to know, oh, did someone hit this same problem and have a solution? You can go to community.powerbi.com and search for your questions, see if there's already an answer. If not, you can ask it and someone is guaranteed to answer you. And if you happen to see a question you do know the answer to, share that out and help someone else along in their desire to learn Power BI. We also have a user voice site as well. Kim mentioned this a little bit earlier around data connectors, but it's not just for data connectors, it's for any feature in Power BI. Ideas.powerbi.com, you can go there and you can suggest what features you would like to see added into Power BI. Maybe there's something that your company really wants, the specific chart formatting option. You can go in there, suggest it. Others in the community can vote on the idea, and that really does. We really listen to that, and really does influence our backlog on what features we want to add next. We also, if you want to get a little bit more involved in the community, there's such thing as Power BI user groups. So depending on where you live, there may be other people in the same area who are starting to use Power BI as well, or could be experts. And a lot of times there's meetups, you get together, you learn from each other, people come in and give talks. It's a really valuable resource if you live in an area where they have one. I definitely recommend looking and joining one if you see it. And lastly, of course, you may end up hitting something that you think is an issue, and you want to notify the Power BI team about this. We do have a support site as well, support.powerbi.com, where you can submit any kind of issue you're facing, and we will be guaranteed to get notified of that and can react appropriately.
Yep. And just to call out on that slide,
there was one
internally, I see Maria, that's what made me think of it, because Maria's sitting right there. Sorry to put you on the spot. We have a community internally called BI at Microsoft, and Maria drives it. And it's a great way when you're trying to get your organization ramped up to have a place where people can come together, teach each other, learn together, right, and learn from each other. And so we have really active Yammer channels. We have internal sites. We have internal trainings and sessions where we kind of just work out how to use this product and how we can make it better. So if you are from a larger organization and you're trying to kind of get everybody else started, there's a great blog post that we link to here that kind of covers how we did that and how that organization grew. And Maria over there can also probably answer some questions about that. But that's just a great resource if you're really trying to get a large number of people going at the same time. Why not have them kind of work with each other and learn together?
And it was very successful in Microsoft, this organization. So it's definitely something that you can learn from in any company, really, that you are part of.
Yep. Cool. So make sure you check out our other sessions. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Yep. Do you want to come up to the mic? Or I guess we're a kind of small room, so you can talk over people. Yeah. Yep.
So what's the difference between, or what are things that you can do with Power BI desktop that you cannot do with Power BI?
That's a good question.
Vice versa.
Yep.
And when would you
Use one or the other. Yeah, so the question was, when do you use Power BI Desktop? When do you use the Power BI service? When should you use one or the other? What's the difference? So Power BI Desktop, we consider the Power authoring tool. It's got everything in one place. It's got all the data connectors. It's got the data prep view that Amanda showed when she added the conditional column. And it's got the report authoring and publishing. When you get to the Power BI service, it has some editing, but it's a little bit more lightweight. So you can't do the data modeling view where you transform data. Basically, the whole edit queries view is not available on the web, at least yet. And then the data connectors. All of the connectors are available in the Power BI Desktop. Some of them are available on the service, but not all of them. So like you could connect to an Excel file, but when you get into some of these advanced connectors, you need to start from desktop. So we really, really recommend starting in Power BI Desktop to create that report. It gives you a couple advantages if you start there. One, you have a file that you can kind of walk around with. You can version, you can put in OneDrive, you can save. And two, you can always go to the cloud. You can always publish this file to the cloud and download it. But if you start from the cloud, you're not starting with a file that we can then kind of extract and take back. So really starting from desktop is your best bet.
Just to add on to that, so I would just add that the desktop is really the authoring tool, which Kim clearly said, but I would also just add that the service is really where you want to start going when you want to start collaborating with others. So that's where you want to share your data out. You can create things like apps that package a bunch of different files together to share out to groups of your company. So once you need those kind of collaboration features, that's when you want to go to the service.
Yep.
A follow-up to that, in one of the more recent versions, you re-enabled the download from cloud back to the PBIX. So but if you make a change in that file
Oh, you can download it, yeah. So, yep. So, and here's where the kind of workflow starts. If you start in desktop and you publish it up to the service, there's a download option, so you can go File, Download, and download that file back. If you made any changes on the web, those changes will apply. The trick is, if you start in the service, we don't yet have the capability to download it because it didn't start from a desktop file. It doesn't have all the same pieces that the desktop file had. So really, the trick there is always start from desktop. You can do any authoring in the web that you want, and it'll round trip when you download it. Yeah.
But if you synced with OneDrive, you wouldn't need to do that?
You wouldn't need to do any of that. Yeah, so OneDrive kind of saves some of that because it just happens. You don't have to worry about keeping it in sync. Yep.
So this is about custom visualizations.
Mhm.
Whenever I go to add one, I get like a notification that because it wasn't built by Microsoft, there could be a security warning with that. Do you guys vet those before you put them in your store to
Yep.
minimize some of that malware risk?
We do, and actually, you'll see once you see the custom visual store in desktop, some of them are kind of you don't see that anymore on some of them, but we do that because who knows what you've downloaded and are putting in there, but we do try to vet them. And one of the great things about the custom visuals gallery, we actually migrated it to the Office store. So you may have seen that recently, that now if you go to the Office store, you'll see a section for Power BI, and that's where all our custom visuals live. Now they have reviews, they have ratings. So now you can start to see which ones are the most popular, when were they created, which ones are trending. So we're trying to kind of use the community to help vet some of that because we don't want to sit there and block everyone until our team goes and checks everything. But letting the community manage some of that is going to be good. So checking out the reviews and the ratings is a great option. Yep.
Can you talk for a second about content packs and some best practices around
Yep.
content packs?
Yep. So content packs being the service base. So if you saw the keynote, Siri talked a little bit about apps. So this is kind of the new wave of content packs. And what it allows you to do is take a workspace and all the stuff in your workspace, right? You have a bunch of dashboards, you have a bunch of reports, data sets, maybe Excel workbooks. And you can package those up into what we're calling an app. And when you do that, you can publish it to your organizational store. And from there, anybody in your organization, or you can decide who can or can't see it, can go and install that. You can even decide, hey, install this in everybody with the security group. And you can install it for them. So organizational content packs are kind of becoming apps. That's the next generation. So apps are a great way to package up that content and share it really easily within your organization. And then we have these service-based content packs, like the Google Analytics one, GitHub. And these are made by these third parties like GitHub and Google Analytics. And what they've done is they've packaged up all those dashboards and reports for their specific connector and made that available to you. So with either of these, a really good best practice is once you install them in the service, now you actually have access to that data set. And using that feature we talked about earlier where you can live connect to any data set you have access to in the service, you can, in desktop, go find the content packs you've installed, pick one, and now you have the data model already done for you because we went and built the Google Analytics data set for you, and now you can just create reports off of it. So that's another really good way to get started where you just take a data set that you got from a content pack, and now you can author new reports off of it. Yep.
Kind of piggyback on that with the service content packs. Do you see a lot of updates when they're adding different things to those content packs at all or not yet?
And they update some, but I wouldn't say it's not the same rhythm that we update the product, but they do on occasion update.
Yeah, it depends on the service.
Yeah.
Especially some of the newer content packs get updated more often, and it really depends on which content pack you're talking
Because
about.
it kind of depends on the company as well, because they're all
How
third
often?
party. It's kind of up to them and how engaged they want to be in updating them as well.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Just wondering, you mentioned the PBIX earlier, that
Mhm.
if you put it on the dashboard, can you have multiple people working off of that same file at the same time?
You can't work off of the same PBIX at the same time. So that's the tricky part because you don't want people kind of overwriting each other as they're adding visuals or deleting visuals. So that's where, again, that live connect to the service comes in. So if you create one data set, publish it up, now people can work off of different PBIX files, but the same data set. So now they can create multiple reports. Yep.
Can you speak a little bit about the ability to dynamically configure reports or dashboards based off of user groups or roles? So if you're in an organization
Mhm.
and you want to deploy out a dashboard and you've got a variety of different types of users or groups, and for one group you want to hide this thing,
Yep.
but you don't want like a blank space. Can you talk a little bit what options are available?
Yeah, so we do have role-level security in Power BI Desktop, so you can create groups and say, maybe there's a group of people that are only able to access Canada's data versus the US data versus all, right? So you can set up those rules in Power BI Desktop using role-level security, and then when you publish it up to the service will check, see who this person is, and filter out that data automatically. In terms of showing different content entirely, I think a best practice there is to kind of split it up and create different reports or different dashboards for those groups, because yeah, you'll just have a big blank space if there's nothing available to them. So it kind of depends on how many groups you're making. If you're making it for a really large number, I would say row-level security is a great way to build that report once. Or if you're really tailoring the actual report to different groups, you might want to create different reports. Yep.
That you create those groups for the role of security, this is essentially the report developer needs to maintain those groupings, the members and stuff?
Yeah, so there are a couple options. Depending on what your data source is, so like if you're using Azure Analysis Services, the backend source, you can keep all that, you can define row-level security there, and it just propagates up. Some data sources support that, some don't, and you might have to use a gateway for some of those scenarios. So depending on which source you're using, either the developer would have to do that or the underlying data source would already have that. Cool. All right, I think we're out of time, so
Yeah.
thank you. We'll be here in the front if anybody else has any other questions.